Hello, 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 coaches and leaders. I'm so excited. I have an incredible author with me and keynote speaker, Dr. Jason Jones. I read his book, Activator. I'm showing it now if you're watching the YouTube video. Um, and I'll put the link in the show notes as well. We're going to be referring to the information in the book. I personally learned a lot about the book. It's super research based. So those of you that are research geeks like me, you're going to love this episode. One thing that I want to share before we dive in is that my sound probably sounds different than my other episodes because I am in a hotel room. I've been traveling all week for work and I did not have room in my suitcase for my podcast mic. So here we are with mediocre sound and fantastic content for you. So first of all, I wanted to welcome you to the show, Jason.
Thank you, Becca. It's great being here with you.
Yeah. So I'd love you to share with everyone what has been your professional journey through, kind of you've done a ton of research, you're really into neuroscience and leadership. And what do you do now?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so it's been a bit of a journey now, going on what, 2.5 decades of this, but so I'll try to make this as short as possible. But at one point, thought early in my 20s, thought I wanted to go into counseling and that sort of thing. But while I was in graduate school, realized that was not where I found my meaning, nor I found my talent. But I loved psychology and behavior, and I was also running a business. And that led me into the world of and pursuing a PhD in the area of industrial organizational psychology. And so did that whole thing and said, I got to be in business, got to be in organizations to learn really how to utilize this because I wanted to be practical. I didn't want to teach and be doing research. And within that process, mid 2000s, I discovered the new world of neuroscience. And quite honestly, there were some things that were at odds with some of the things I learned from a behavioral perspective, or they didn't quite sync up, which made me want to learn more. And I've really just kind of leaned into that area. So I look at what I do is kind of bridging both the behavioral and the neuroscience to apply it to people in the workplace for better influence and also better leadership.
I love it. I love your focus on application. We're not just talking about empty theories that research studies show work, but what that you want people to use this, not just think about it, but use it in their organizations.
Yeah, and make it understandable as well, right? Because there's so much. Pick up an academic, peer-reviewed academic paper, and you get lost first couple of paragraphs, right? Because you're like, well, what are they saying? Because it's all academic speak and big words, and let's make it sound good. And I'm all about, hey, how do we make this where anyone can utilize it and put it in our everyday work, and remember to put it into our everyday work.
Yes, that's exactly it. Okay, so I want to actually start this episode with a quote from your book. It was right at the beginning, and I loved it, and I wanted to kind of have this as the foundation of our conversation today. And the quote is, "A leader's interactions with their employee is the most critical component impacting that person's choice to commit to an organization's goal and put extra effort into helping achieve them." And the folks that are my beautiful listeners are instructional coaches and school and district leaders working with teachers, right? So the employees we're talking about are teachers. And I just want to highlight a leader's interaction with their employee is the most critical component, right? So we're actually going to be talking about the research and how leaders can interact differently with their employees to impact. In schools we say buy-in, right? And I actually believe in mutual engagement, but
Mhm.
really, and we're going to talk about the difference between motivation and engagement. That was mind-blowing for me.
Mhm.
But how can that impact that, which is what we all want?
Absolutely. And you're exactly right with your perspective of how this is important for any coach. I do coaching as well. And so you look at it at multiple levels here, right? So you look at it that if you're going to be a good coach and you're going to interact and influence and coach well, it does start with the relationship that you have, that credibility, that connection. But then when the people that you are coaching, you want them to be better leaders. What are you coaching them for, right? And they have to do it with the people they want to influence as well. And it all comes back to the interaction. And what I like to say is when it all boils down to it, this is real leadership, real influence is about the interactions and the experiences that you create with people.
Mhm. Yes,
You,
I love this.
you,
Right.
you can make all kinds of arguments. You can have a great speech from a stage. I do that type of stuff, right? But when it comes down to it, those things are fleeting.
Mhm.
You can talk to people about believing what you believe till you're blue in the face,
Mhm.
and they're likely not going to believe it unless they have a trust and a connection with you that
Mhm.
over time they hear, they see your passion, they see your energy around it, they see your consistency with your behavior around it to the point where they say, you know what, I want to believe that too. Or I believe that now that I see it. I
Yeah,
believe it because of our interaction.
exactly. Oh, I love that. Every interaction is an opportunity to continue to grow mutual engagement in coaching and growth, all of that. Okay.
Mhm.
So there's so much I want to talk with you about. So I want to dive right in. First of
Get it?
all, one of the things that struck me right at the beginning of the book is you distinguish engagement from motivation.
Hmm.
Can you share that difference with everyone so we can kind of just talk it
Yeah.
out?
Yeah, in short, I'm going to share it in short, and then you can ask other questions about it. Hopefully, this will suffice. But there's a difference between motivation and engagement. I look at like a Venn diagram. There's some overlap to it as well. Motivation is our energy to act. It's psychological energy, right? Engagement is actually the discretionary effort you put into something.
Mhm.
So it's the behavior piece around this. Someone can be motivated, but actually not be engaged.
Yes.
However, you have to have motivation to be engaged. So I look at motivation as like the engine of the car, right? The car that has all the other components that make it go. If you just have an engine sitting there, it does nothing. It's like a hand in the glove. A glove has great utility, but without a hand in it, the motivation in it, the energy in it, the glove is of no use. And so when we think about how people do things, how we help people engage in life, achieve goals, move forward, we need to help them with both motivation, which is the deeper internal, and the engagement, which takes the deeper internal and actually puts it into application, puts it into behavior.
Mhm. I love this. Okay. And I think during our conversation, it's going to come to light, right? How do we transfer motivation into the movement of engagement, right? And
Yeah,
so I,
absolutely. And this is actually where in my book I talk about supercharging, right?
yeah.
Performance. And I talk about deepening engagement. You can have some level of engagement, but the more that you are able to bring the internal with the external, you can
Mhm.
actually do have some good behaviors with the motivation. But if you don't have the external piece of that that gets them a deeper level of engagement, typically even performance is not supercharged. You want to have all of this together, you actually focus on both motivation and engagement.
Yes. So I want to talk about the internal for a moment,
Mhm.
about people understanding the first thing. And my coaches and leaders, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know, I tell you a lot, you have to start with yourself first. You
Mhm.
cannot ask your teachers to do something that you haven't done first, right? So our first step as coaches and leaders is to understand our own motives, right? We're not going to go tell our
Yeah.
teachers, well, you have to understand your own motives before we do
Mhm.
it ourselves. So I want to ask you, how can someone start to learn about their own motives and then about the motives of others?
Yeah, so and I first want to say this too. When you think about your own motivation, we'd be remiss not to talk about this, and I have this in my book as well. And I think there are two mechanisms of motivation and engagement and performance when you all look at it, and one of them is the internal. And this is where we have to make sure things are right inside. What an example of this is, or to right inside to get our highest level of motivation and to be our best selves. And an example of this is one of those pieces is the physiological, not just the psychological. We always focus on psychological about most motivation, but physiologically, we've got to make sure that we're doing some things that keeps ourselves healthy, our brain healthy, our body healthy. Because if you don't have that and you don't have that energy, and your mitochondria is not doing well, your body is not doing well, and constantly fighting and having to deal with inflammation, and it doesn't have the nutrients, it doesn't have the protein, that actually holds you back, your body energy. And remember, motivation is energy, right? And so I always tell when I'm coaching with, and I about half of executives I coach with, and they talk to me about, oh, my energy's not there, my motivation's not there, I don't have my mojo I used to have. First thing I talk about, internal and the physiology. You need to go make sure what are things we can do for the physiology, even going and seeing your doctor, doing your blood test, checking your hormones, all those things. And by the way, that's for both men and women. A lot of times people want to say, well, hormones, women type of, no, this is men and women. I have worked with many men who find that their testosterone levels are way low, and they're wondering why. Hey, I don't feel like I did 10 or 20 years ago. I'm not motivated anymore, right? And then they realize, wow, this is a physiological thing. So physiological is first. Second is our psychological, right? And that's where we get into tune with what are our deepest intrinsic drivers and motivation, right? And that's why I talk a lot about in the book. And you did a podcast not too long ago
I
on this
did, yeah.
basic desires theory.
Mhm.
And this is where you are better able to understand what are your what Stephen Reese, Professor Stephen Reese, would say would be your basic desires or your intrinsic values. In other words, these are your intrinsic motivations. These are the deepest things that we get a connection and understand our true values and what really is meaningful for us, right? And that's where I have people kind of start there to be able to better understand their own motivations. And then from there, they can kind of move forward with the other piece, which is a more external piece of engagement and getting the environment to support what's internal.
Yes. Okay. I love that. And just a little plug for the research rundown that I don't remember that it's in the low 100s
Mhm.
of the episodes. Check it out. I think it says 16 basic desires that humans have. And it is, and there's 16 of them, which I love. It feels very comprehensive. And some surprising ones are beauty. Some people are motivated by beauty. Some people are motivated by vengeance. That was super surprising for me. And then there's ones that you would eating is one of them, and I thought that was so interesting. It wasn't hunger, it was eating, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Anyway, so
Yeah.
check out that episode. I name all 16 from Dr. Jason Jones' book, is straight from his book, and he got it from research, right? So I want to talk about from this basic desires theory, right? And with those 16 desires, how can the coaches and leaders listening leverage that to impact and increase motivation and engagement?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, what I would do, and if I was playing coach to your coaches,
Yes.
I would say first of all, know what those 16 desires are, and
Mhm.
these, and I call them. I don't like to call them desires. People misinterpret that. I call them intrinsic values or
Okay,
intrinsic
great.
motivators. All right. And know what those are and get in tune with those for even yourself, because like you said before, knowing yourself gives you an ability to be able to now take that framework and that methodology and apply it to others and be able to read others and understand others more quickly. And I think that's what great coaches do. And you can ask some
Yes.
questions around this, certainly, but now you're going to know how to make the connection. You're going to know also what really drives them, what really are the key motivations outside of those things that are more of the extrinsic, that are just vehicles for intrinsic money, for instance, right? Money is out there. Money is always a motivator, but guess what? It's just a vehicle to get us to the intrinsic values of what money is. Just a piece of paper, but it's what it gives us, right? And so first thing is know what your intrinsic values are.
Mhm.
And that doesn't take long. In fact, you can read my book about it, but also you can go on my website. I have a free quiz someone could take, and they can answer some questions. And then it gives you on each of these desires, it lets you know whether it's a weak desire, an average, or it's strong for you. And by the way, if it's average, it's not going to be a big driver in your life, but if it's weak or strong, it will be. If it's weak, it's going to be the opposite of that. So, for instance, acceptance is the first one. And if you have weak acceptance, it still is a motivator for you because you're going to actually be, you're going to not care what people say or think about you. You know, think like a Steve Jobs, right? But if you're strong on that, it's certainly going to be and make an impact on your behavior and your thinking. Okay. So do that for yourself so you know it. And then now you can take that understanding and you can apply it to the people that you coach. You can even teach it to the people that you coach. It's not too difficult. Each of these are pretty self-explanatory, and you can have conversations around them, because what I find is a lot of people don't understand what their real intrinsic drivers are, their intrinsic values. When you understand those, then that allows you then to then construct your world around that. You're constructing your world around what makes life happy and fulfilling for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are able to then construct your work around that. So let's think practical. That's pretty high level. Let's think practical about this. Any coach, I believe, will be a better coach when they better understand their people and help their people understand the people that they're serving, understand themselves more. And so by being able to listen to, and it just comes out of them, these things come out, these intrinsic, and then be able to point those out. Oh, you know what? You know, you have a high status. You have a strong status desire. You have an intrinsic value for status. Now, how do you implement this and pursue the fulfillment of this in your work? Oh, you have a high social contact. How do you put this? Oh, you have a low honor, which you may also look at this as high expedience. It's just kind of same things, but reversed. And that is like natural rebellion. That's like you don't want to be like other people, but that's intrinsically motivating for people. And you've been around people like that. Guess what? Help them see that and harness that in their work. That means you're probably going to be a little more innovative. They're going to want to do things differently than everyone else, and that can be a good thing if we actually use it in the right way. So those are just some examples. And I won't continue on. I could, talk forever on this stuff, but certainly ask me more questions about that if there's, some things that I didn't explain very well.
I want to highlight something, and I do have a question for you about that. So, one thing I want to highlight is those of you listening, I want you to think about someone that you're having a hard time impacting, a teacher you're having a hard time impacting. And a place I want you to look in terms of that impact, it could be that you could have opposing desires, right? So you could have a very weak one where that person has a very strong one, or the opposite, they could have a very weak one where you have a very strong one. And a mindset that I often talk about that impacts and creates tension and an inability to connect is our shoulds, because we think if we are, if you can't name it, you can't tame it, right? So if you have it that people should be like you, and a lot of people don't even realize that, right? So I think, it's I have these values that I think other people should have. And if someone is weak in that, in that value, right, they don't actually value that very much or have that desire, they're not motivated by that, that could cause a rub if I am not self-aware about that, if I'm expecting them, or even if I have a judgment around that difference, right? So I want to highlight that and say, look there, take that assessment, see, start to see, is there a difference in basic desires, right? And then one of the desires is vengeance. Is that correct? Am I correct in that?
Yes.
That's the last
Yeah.
one. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that for a second because it surprised me. And I've been trying to think about, right, not having judgment around it. I'm like, how could this be just like a desire to have vengeance? Can you talk a little bit more about that and how to neutralize that? and have it not be
I'm
like bad, you know?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, not neutralize it in someone, but help people see that
Yeah,
it can be a
it's
positive
neutral. Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
and you're
exactly.
right. All of these basic desires, according to Stephen Reese, are neutral. They're
Neutral. Hmm.
neither positive or negative. I will tell you that honor um, is one that, and vengeance is the other big ones that get kind of a bad rap because people can look at them and say, "Oh, that's a good thing or a bad thing,"
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Indeed, it's not, and the research even supports it. Vengeance is the desire to stand up against where you feel like you've been wronged.
Mhm.
Okay. Vengeance is where someone does not, they have an internal desire to stand up for others. Maybe it's for themselves when something is unjust or
Mhm.
something
Yeah.
is not right, that
Hmm.
you feel strongly internally about it. And you can't, if you're strong in it, it's very hard for you to hold back. Okay.
Yeah.
So these are high justice people. I believe on the MMPI, and probably rate very highly on the law enforcement area because they're high justice oriented. But another way to look at this too, that I think there's some correlation, the research I remember reading on this, risk related to being more confident in their aggression and also a little bit more competitive,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
so they're not going to step back. They're going to hold to um, making sure that a right is or a wrong is righted, right?
Hmm.
Making
Hmm.
sure someone who is out of line is brought back into line, and you will have great energy in that. Now, if you're strong on that, you're going to have the good with the bad, right? You're
Yeah.
going to probably need people around you to temper you a little bit and help you choose
Hmm.
your battles. If
Hmm.
you're weak on that, you got to make sure that you are not being trampled on or letting people take advantage of you or not standing up when you do need to stand up. And that
Hmm.
has a lot of implications in the workplace or when we're working with people, even as a coach, because you're making a decision on when do you step up and provide constructive feedback? When do you step up and you challenge someone's thinking or not? Right?
Hmm.
If you're high vengeance, you got to be careful. You may do that too much. If
Hmm.
you're low vengeance or you're weak in vengeance, you got to make sure that you're not bypassing these things and bringing things to
Hmm.
people's attention that they need.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Another way could look at it is justice, like a sense of bringing justice to situations. Is that
Mm-hmm. Yep.
accurate?
Yep.
Okay. All right, cool. And they're important. Our vengeance people are important because they stand, they could be heroic, I would imagine. Like, standing up for what's right when it could feel difficult, especially for my beautiful people pleasers,
Yeah.
where that's not necessarily an innate way to react. We need our justice vengeance people to say, no, this is wrong. And
Yeah.
I am going to not stop until it is righted.
So you want a real interesting application of this right now. And when we look at these internal, these intrinsic values, these desires, we're all unique in how they're actually blended together on what's strong and what's weak, right?
Hmm.
What's happening right now and what's going to happen over the next few months is on your Facebook feed, on your Instagram feed, on your TikTok feed, all this stuff. You're going to find people that are higher and stronger in vengeance are going to be more vocal
Hmm. Hmm.
because they can't help themselves.
Hmm.
Now, if you find someone who's high in vengeance and they are, let's throw another one out there, high in vengeance, high in idealism, um, strong in power or
Hmm.
influence,
Hmm.
they're going to really be posting a lot of stuff because they
Mm.
want to influence and they want to, in their what they're saying and thinking in their mind, they want to tell people this has got to be different, we've got to do this different, and they're going to be very emphatic about it and they're not going to hold back on it. Okay. Now, Becca, what if that person also has weak acceptance? Whoa.
Mhm.
Now you've got a person who does not care what anybody else thinks about them. This is likely probably the person that you have on your feed that is constantly political, constantly being aggressive with it, or telling people how bad they are or they're wrong or that sort of thing. It's likely that is what their desires profile, their motivation profile looks like: high vengeance, high power, or strong vengeance, strong valor, and weak acceptance.
Mhm. Wow.
Interesting, isn't it?
That's a really
And
great, and I
and
love,
look at Steve Jobs. What was Steve Jobs? Low acceptance, high beauty, very strong beauty. He didn't want his computers to be brown boxes. He wanted to be beautiful, but also strong in power. And he was also strong in vengeance, right? And that's how you get not only he was strong in status as well, but that's how you get a personality like that. But also, guess what? That company he built, Apple, is a direct representation of his personality and his
Mhm.
motives. Isn't that interesting?
It's so interesting, and it's such a great way to look at the world because it really is neutral. There's none of them that are good or none of them that are bad. Have you
And so, can I
heard?
make another application of that just real quickly? And that is
Yeah.
your coaching. And I've been
Mhm.
coaching for many years now, going on 20 years. Um, if you're not careful, your coaching will be that reflection of your desires,
Mhm. Mhm.
your interests, and you have to be careful with that
Mhm.
because then that drives how you see things, your biases, how you coach. There can be some good things in that, right? But also there can be some blind spots in that, or how we're coaching people along, or how we judge others, as you mentioned below. Because if you've got a strong desire in one area and someone has a weak, you're going to see things from opposite standpoints. And that's why one of the major applications of basic desires theory is actually diversity. It's the application and acceptance of difference and of diversity, because this is true diversity right here, where we're able to see differences and accept someone and actually value them when they have a different perspective or opposite perspective that I have, right?
Mhm.
That's hard
That
sometimes.
it can be hard, right? And it increases connection when we can connect with people that are different than us.
Yeah,
And this is
absolutely.
a tool to do that. I'm not, it's so funny. We say, we have these like phrases, right? That we just
Hmm.
say, and it's like, be vulnerable, or, but it's like, how, right? How do we connect with people that are different than us? This is a tool. Understand your basic desires. Start to learn how you could possibly hear other people's basic desires. Maybe even have them take the assessment. What increases connection. I want to veer into the connection realm, and then I also want
Sure.
to veer into the neuroscience realm. You talk about connection, and I believe you talk about the three, I wrote this down, three elements of connection.
Hmm.
Can
Yeah.
we talk about them? Wait,
Yeah.
before we do, I want to give a little context. I know you and I briefly, I mentioned I do human-centered coaching,
Hmm.
versus, and I don't think I shared that, versus task-centered coaching. And often in schools, when I'm brought in to work with my beautiful coaches, what is happening is task-centered coaching. So an instructional coach sits down with the teacher and says, okay, here's our goal, and then we're going to go through this protocol step
Yeah.
by step, and I observe you, and then I give you feedback, and you're supposed to implement it, but I don't know why you're not implementing it, and why are you
Hmm.
avoiding me, right? There's all this, and it's really an impact to task-centered coaching, and an element that distinguishes task-centered versus human-centered coaching is connection. And so I'm
Hmm.
excited for you
Yeah.
to share these three elements, because this can really shift our coaching from just being task-centered to human-centered.
Yeah, yeah. So the real application of this, and I take the behavioral and the neuroscience here and just kind of pack it into to three elements that are imperative for good connection. Okay. First of all, it's important to know this: connection is, and I call it connection, not just relationship, because connection connotes that this could be a weak connection, it could be an average, it could be a strong connection you have with people. The stronger it is, the more influential you will be. Okay, so that's baseline. Here's the other thing to know is I talk about three practices of a leader, and how you influence and how you practice from a neuroscience standpoint. Those three practices are connecting, coaching, and culturing. Okay, the very first one is connecting, and the reason why it's the first thing is because this is what connecting is. It earns you the right to be able to coach well and to culture. Okay. So too many people, I have people that want me to come in and do training or do consulting work or whatnot in their organization, and they want to jump right to culture. And we have to say, well, wait a second, you're never going to have the culture you want if you don't have the relationships, the connection, the leadership, And then we can move into the coaching and then build that how we lead, which, by the way, coaching is how we influence with both backbone and heart. Okay. And then finally, the culturing then is how we create an environment of excellence by the standards that we create and uphold in that. So going back to connecting, it's the very first thing that earns us the right. And so how do we connect? What are we looking at connection? It's important to know that connection is not just behavioral, but it's also neuro. There's a neuroscience perspective of this. It's very important. We're learning more and more about. So there are three elements of this to make it very practical, and it's this: care. They're also the three C's: care, character, and communication. Right now, we could have one podcast on each one of these probably, or multiple.
Yeah.
But in a nutshell, care is helping people to understand that they are cared for, that they are important, that they belong, that they're missed if they're not there, right? So that is a supportive environment, and it's a relationship built environment. Okay. Um, the second area is the communication, and in communicate or not, it's in character. And character is how we are in alignment with the character of other people, their values, essentially. What is character? Character is a person's values put into action. That becomes your character. When you look at someone, you say, this is their character. It's because we behave according to our values. And someone might say, this is my value. And if they behave differently, that's not their value. That's an aspirational value, maybe, but it's not their true value because we act in accordance to what we value, right? So, and you can debate me on that, and we could have psychological conversations on that, but I'm going to say fundamentally, you see a person's value in their behavior, right? And so what we want to do then is make sure, and by the way, character, it's not just being a good person or a bad person. Character are these things that we value that are put into place. So it is our determination. It is our humility. It is our integrity, of course, and a level of honesty. But guess what? It's also about punctuality. It's about thoroughness, right? Do we take time to check our work and not do shoddy work, and not, have a sense of thoroughness about what we do? How about just showing up on time? That's one element. If you look up character qualities, character traits, you will find anywhere from models of, 20 to 90. There are a lot of those out there. The idea here is not that we have the same values politically or have the same values about theory or religion or anything like that. The character piece is, do we fundamentally have the same values in how we bring ourselves to work, how we bring ourselves to what we do? And if we see a mismatch in that, that causes a disconnection. Okay. So if someone is, you got a friend, you got a boss, and they just never make it to our meetings on time. That causes a disconnection of it. Well, am I really that valuable for them? Why do they think they're more important than me, that they can break this or they can not show up when I took the time and effort to show up on time, right? And that can then cause a disconnection. When you have the values and you see that they're connecting together, we actually then connect with people more. So that's the character piece. And finally, communication is around how clear and how consistent our communication is, right? So how clear it is, are we like talking, speaking in a way that people can understand us? That's a clarity piece. Consistency is, are we saying the same things? Or are we doing something different? Or are we saying one thing one time and then one thing another? People pick up on that and they are like, oh, wait a second, I'm not sure I can trust this. And it hinders connection, right? And so now put all this together. How are people detecting this? We detect it through what we see from an overt perspective, what we see in behavior, what we experience. Remember what we experience in people, the interactions we have. But also within that, we are detecting this through intention. And this is the thing that gets very neuroscientific, because now we actually have good data that shows that we communicate in ways we don't realize we're communicating I mentioned before, neurochemically, hormonally, electrically, micro expressions. Paul Ekman and his research around micro expressions, all very interesting for how we subconsciously
Hmm.
pick up on whether we want to trust someone and connect with them, or we say, I'm not sure yet. Or the worst case where we say, no, I don't, there's something about this person I really don't like,
Yeah.
right? All of that is within the realm of connection. So, application to kind of, I know that maybe recap that is focus on caring for people, really showing that care, concern, right? Character, be in alignment, look for ways you can bring out and even, um, uh, you know, I guess verbalize it at times, right? Praise, celebrate the connections, the value connections you have, and then finally make sure your communication is good in terms of consistency and clarity, but also make sure your intention is right. And that means it's not ego filled and you're always looking for, how do I benefit this other person? How do we
Yeah.
both win in this? Not
Yeah.
being competitive.
And that the crucial conversations work I've done, you can talk about mutual purpose and mutual
Yeah.
respect, right? And that is a huge thing that I teach my coaches. How do you find mutual purpose together? Because that is, especially if you're having a tough conversation, but I really try to
Hmm.
have that every coaching conversation. How can we sit down and be transparent about a mutual purpose we have together? Because
Yeah.
if we actually have wildly different intentions, that could get in the way of making a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I love it. Okay. So I want to talk about adapting to change and the neuroscience. Like what does neuroscience tell us about how a person adapts to change?
Yeah. The short story of this, because there's a much longer perspective of this, but the short story is the number one most important thing about change is how we manage our primal brain,
Mm-hmm.
and how we manage our fight and flight, our threat response. We get comfortable in the way that we do things. When things change, and this can be anywhere from changing where you sit at work to, someone dies in your that's close to you in your life and you're going to miss them, right? And you have grief around that. um our our primal brain, um our most rudimentary part of our brain, uh, controls how we respond to things. This is very amygdala oriented, so it's emotionally responsive, but it's also neurochemically responsive, and how we manage that. And this is millennia old. This is built within us and wired within us. And so the number one most important thing is safety. Is how do we create, if we're going to bring about change for someone, how do we create safety in this? Because this then calms that part of the brain that wants to jump to conclusions and work off of emotion and work off of knee-jerk reaction for self-protection, rather than allowing our cerebral cortex to come in and take control and to say, okay, let's think through this. Let's talk about how we adapt to this. Okay. So safety is the number one most important thing with this, is how do we create safety? If you're coaching someone who's been through change, that's one of the things you want to focus on, is the kind of the safety, the key part of the safety of this, so they understand this isn't the end of the world, and they allow then to allow then the cerebral cortex to be able to think more from an executive function, more about, okay, now how do we manage this and how do we move forward in a healthy and positive way?
Yeah, I love it. I love that you're saying safety because that is something I often say, right? And where if someone feels unsafe, they are literally a different part of the brain is activated, and that part is
Yeah.
does not like change, right? The
Hmm.
amygdala does not like change, and then what often happens in schools is when the amygdala hijack, right, takes over,
Yeah.
and then someone will say, well, let's be professional now. Let's sit down. I sent a professional email, and I'm like, no, no,
Hmm.
no. Your professionalism isn't actually helping someone's lid come down, right? Someone's
Yeah.
um, um, amygdala come offline and their cerebral cortex come online.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. We want literally, we need to shift the different part of our brain to be activated. And the one way to do it is have someone feel safe. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, yeah, and so I use a model around this that's pretty simple. Interestingly enough, it's the same model I use in my program called the neuroscience of selling.
Hmm.
It's very much an influence model, but it's also based on the fact that one reason why someone won't buy something is because they don't trust it. And one of the reasons why people don't want to change or are threatened by change is because it's foreign and they don't trust it. They haven't had time to understand it, right? And so it's our initial reaction. So what I like to try to say, and I've consulted on one of the biggest uh, corporate changes that's ever been made in America. I won't say what it is, but it was a company that made a decision back in the 2000s to take a multi-billion dollar service and turn it into from analog to online. And they handled this poorly. And this is where I pretty much learned this model and validated it now over the past 20 15 years probably on it. But it's this. We have to have safety. That's number one. We've got to communicate and create safety in almost any way that we can. The second thing is clarity. You have to have extreme clarity on what is happening and not create a lot of ambiguousness. What happens in ambiguous with the brain? If there's a gap in understanding, guess what we do?
Feel it.
We fill it in with something negative,
Yes.
something that helps us stay safe. So our brain will fill it with something that's threat oriented. So we've got clarity actually brings about less ambiguity. And I certainly know sometimes we can't do that. We can't fill it. We don't know what's going to happen, and that's hard. And then the last one is value. And the value piece of this is now, why is this important? Why, how could it be valuable to you? Why is it valuable to you? And so anytime we're helping someone with this, we want to extract that. Now, as a consultant, I'm telling leaders, you've got to communicate this and work with people around this. But whenever I use it in my coaching, what does this look like? I'm asking questions around this. What are you confused on? What is it that doesn't seem, it seems overwhelming?
Yeah.
How could you find value in this? If we were to reframe this, what value could you extract from this situation?
Mhm.
Right? And that's how we can actually utilize that in coaching to help them move from a thinking that's stuck in the primal brain, in the threat management, to now move it into a thrive mindset of, okay, I may not be able to control everything, but I can manage this in a way that I can make it good for myself.
I love it. Surviving versus thriving. I was just coaching a couple coaches a few days ago just on that. When two people are in survival mode, no one's going to win here, right? But if one person can rise up and be thriving, they can actually pull up the other person. Just one person has to be able to do that.
They can, and this is why I think coaching is so very. This is a big piece of coaching because you will often be working with people who are stuck in
Hmm.
the survive mode.
Exactly.
And it coaches, what we do is we can't tell people to get out of it. We
Right.
actually can explain to them why and what maybe the neural mechanisms of this, behavioral mechanisms of it. That still is only a fraction of what needs to be done there. It's then asking questions, exploring, getting them to get out of that thinking into questions that gets them to actually engage their cerebral cortex, their frontal lobe, that then can then take over and say, okay, yeah, this is an alternative way to see this. This is how I can manage this. This is where I can take control. This is the possibilities of this moving forward. And it's amazing how you can see people just in a short coaching conversation, they can see them liberate themselves
Mhm.
from that threat mode.
I love it. I love it. Okay, we have to wrap up. I can't believe it. The time flew. I knew it would. So I just want to show everyone again. This is Dr. Jason Jones' book, Activator. I'll put the link in the show notes for you to grab it. It is short. It has actionable steps. It makes complicated concepts simple with nice little like alliteration in schools. We love alliteration and acronyms. Yes. Love it all. So thank you so much for being on the show and sharing what you
You're
have.
welcome, Becca. And I was going to mention this. If they go to
Mhm,
theactivatorbook.com,
mhm,
not only they can order the book there and get it from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all that, but also there are 7 free resources that they can get along with the book. And one of them is the pen and paper version that they can actually use in their
mhm.
coaching of the 16 desires and being able to better understand those. Also, there are 76 activation actions that they can take, these strategies, 76 of those that actually lights up the brain. We didn't really talk about that, but an activator is someone who lights up the brain, right? And that is really what that whole book is about, is how do we light the brain up of people so they can be and do their best in both work and life.
Yeah, I love it. So check out Dr. Jason Jones' work on his website. Is that what's the name of the website?
Yeah, it's D well, you can my personal website is drjasonjones.com. So it's
Huh?
drjasonjones.com.
Hmm.
You put that in the show notes. Also, the assessment for the intrinsic motives.
Hmm.
You can find that at drjasonjones/MVQ, like motives, values, quiz. So
Okay. Thank
MVQ,
you.
and they
Okay.
can get access to that there as well.
Great, great. I'll put as a separate link because I think that could be a game changer for folks listening to this. So again, thank
Awesome.
you so much for being here and sharing all of your expertise
Yeah.
with us.
Oh, my pleasure.